General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is the Tom Trento Show. Make America think again.
Live in the morning, WWNN 1470, 95.3 on your radio dial, the United West. You're going to hear that term today because on our show today, phenomenal show, we're going to explain to you how Google, the tech monster, the gigantic trillion-dollar company, has targeted little old the United West, our little old organization here in South Florida. Indeed, Google has targeted, and it was on Fox and Friends News this morning. I knew about it for a couple of days, what's taking place. We're going to tell you all about that in a little bit. And then in the second part of our show, we have some critically historic news. The nonsense that's going on Capitol Hill right now, this impeachment facade. Look, don't waste your time unless you're a radio talk show host, an activist, some sort of pundit, some sort of person involved in influencing culture. If you're a regular person where you just want to get up and go to work and take care of your family, do not waste brain cells on this nonsensical impeachment inquiry kangaroo court. It's a kangaroo court. They have a whole variety of people, uniforms and whatever. They could put the Three Stooges up there, the Abbott and Costello. They could put, they being Schiff and the Democrats, they can go into the audience. They can go out in the street across from Capitol Hill, pick three random people, put the people up there, ask them questions, and whatever the people say, the Democrats are going to say, oh, my word, look at the insight they have. Jaw-dropping. They use the term jaw-dropping. And they love groundbreaking and a bombshell. They use those terms. They already have concluded that Donald Trump needs to be impeached. It's a political process by the House. They're going through with it. They know the Senate's never going to do it. It's simply killing Trump with the death of 1,000 cuts. That's what they're trying to do.
Exactly. To
give you Trump fatigue. We had enough of it. Guess what? You get Mike Pence, who is a right-wing evangelical Christian. Many of us would say, hey, if you're going to go after Trump, we prefer Trump, but hey, we can live with Mike Pence.
Yep.
Don't even listen. Don't even pay attention to these nonsensical impeachment hearings. So that's my comment on the impeachment nonsense today. But a little bit on a personal side, the United West, we're an organization about 13 years old, and we grew out of the 9/11 history, the years after 9/11 in order to protect where we lived in Florida. Our original name was the Florida Security Council, and the objective was to educate Floridians as to the Islamic threat in the state of Florida. Indeed, the state of Florida was a launching pad. The St. Pete Times in 2002 did a year-long investigation, and they saw that many of the 19 people lived and operated and learned how to fly and ran their despicable campaign and program out of the state of Florida. So we grew in that milieu, and in 2011, we had a name change to a broader context of helping people understand the Islamic threat, the Marxist threat, the United West, uniting Western civilization against the isms, against the threats of the day. And in doing that, we met some wonderful people, and we meet wonderful people every day. But two people very, very dear to our hearts who passed away in the past 2 months. And they are Richard and Nancy Boyman, and many people who follow the United West remember sad. Richard and Nancy. Mark, you remember them?
Yeah, very sad. I mean, the great, wonderful people. Always, I love Nancy. I thought she just the greatest. Always give me a big hug and a kiss every time she saw me. And just fantastic people, both of them.
Yeah, they were distinguished human beings. They had very successful careers. Nancy was involved in a New York school system and created the Holocaust curriculum for New York City school systems as one of her legacies. And they moved to Florida, and like most people do, you go get your golf clubs and you play golf and you go to a club. Not them. They said, we got to stand up for what we believe, and they stood firmly to their Jewish tradition and stood fighting the Jew hatred and the Islamic threats and everything else to the day they died. I mean, they were an inspiration to all of us here at the United West. So we just wanted to recognize them. Nancy died in September. Richard died just last week. So our prayers and condolences to the family, to the friends. Wonderful people, Richard and Nancy Boyman out of Boca Raton, Florida.
Gold Star people.
Yeah. So, again, we have a lot going on today. I want to draw your attention to a situation in the tech world. Now, our friend Laura Loomer, who's running for the U.S. Congress in District 21, I think at last count, Mark, she's suing how many tech giants? I think 200.
Probably all of them. Well, she's the most banned person in America. She really is.
She's been banned on everything, but she has fought back by initiating lawsuits against, I think, PayPal, against Care, against Twitter, and I think Google too. She's thrown in there.
Well, we've been banned by PayPal and everybody.
I know we haven't had as difficult a ride as she has.
Right.
But I got a text the other day. Somebody alerted me 2 days ago to a very comprehensive, probably 10,000 word investigative report by the Wall Street Journal. Now,
right.
In context, as newspapers go, the Wall Street Journal has typically been center right in their Weltanschauung, their worldview, and how they view the world. And normally, they went off the rails a bit on this Trump nonsense, never Trumping situation. But historically, they have been a very distinguished paper. And when they do investigative reports, you got to take them extremely seriously. Well, they did about a 10,000 word extended investigative report. It took months.
4 reporters.
4 different reporters. Now, when you go to a newsroom, it's you go get your assignment to the assignment editor, and he tells you, "Why don't you go cover that fire over there?" You're a junior cub reporter. You run out there, you cover, you file your story. Somebody else usually writes the headline. When you get a little better, you can team up and do a story on arson. So let's do a story on arson.
The second.
And then when you get a little better, it's on, we're going to send you to another country to do something. You advance. When you put 4 distinguished writers on something, that is an elevated level of seriousness by the Wall Street Journal.
Investigative team is what it is.
They said, we have a problem. We think there's a problem with Google censoring groups and blacklisting groups. Blacklisting. Sounds like the McCarthy era, when people were identified as communists and they were blacklisted. Many of them rightfully so because they were communists. But the concept is a derogatory term. Well, when I read, and you're listening to Tom Trento at 11 after 11, on 11. Oh, it's 11 right now. How about that? That's pretty good.
11-11.
Do I win anything? 11 right now. And we are broadcasting on WNN. There's actually 2 W's, but it's too much to say. WNN 1470 AM or 95.3. Tell your friends to tune in. We're going to talk in the second part of the show about what happened at the State Department yesterday that impacts the world
huge.
Generally, and specifically the Middle East and directly the state of Israel. With a historic decision that shocked many of us.
Yeah.
So that's up next. But I'm going to read a section in this 10,000 word investigative report. And then we're going to play a clip that was on Fox and Friends this morning. Brian Kilmeade, hosted the segment, oversaw the segment that dealt with this story. And we did not know this story was coming out. But here we go. Listen up carefully. if you got your windows open, I guess you can put your air on because it's still warm here in South Florida, and listen carefully to what I read and then what the clip that we play from Fox and Friends. Now, what's the big idea? The big idea is that if you want the free flow of information per the historic doctrines of the United States, per the First Amendment, then when abuses like this are exposed, in this case by the Wall Street Journal, something must be done about it. And we're a little guy. We're just a little guy. Why are they picking on us? You know, what's the big deal where Google has to come after the United West and blacklist us? What's with that? All right, listen up. I'm reading now from the Wall Street Journal 3 days ago, Friday, 3 or 4 days ago. How Google, here's the headline, how Google interferes with its search algorithms, that means magical formulas, and changes your results. That's not a great headline. I mean, what results? Changes your results in whatever you're putting up as a conservative organization. Ours happens to be an analysis of the threats that face Americans, whether they're Marxist threats or Islamic threats or internal threats or whatever the issue is. And the Wall Street Journal continues, the practice of creating blacklists. So right out front, the journal is talking about this nefarious kind of amorphous idea of a blacklist. Somewhere there's a list, and it's not a good list. It's not white, it's not silver, it's not gold, it's not platinum, it's black. You use black when you want to disparage something, when you want to say something negative about something.
Do not publish.
The practice of creating blacklists for certain types of sites, websites, or searches, Google searches, has fueled cries of political bias from Tom Trento? No. From some conservatives? Yeah. But from Google engineers and right-wing publications. We would be considered a right-wing. Anything conservative is on the right side of the political spectrum. So the Wall Street Journal has said, even within Google, some of the engineers are saying, this ain't right. Why are we censoring and identifying people for their political bias? I thought we're just a platform for communication. Some Google engineers, I'm continuing reading, and right-wing publications believe there's political bias. That said, they have viewed portions of the blacklists. They, being the Google engineers, have viewed portions of the blacklists. Some of the website Google appears to have targeted in Google News were conservative sites and blogs, according to documents reviewed by the journal. Now, the journal, in their investigation, God bless them for their work, they went in and they found documentation. Did they do it undercover? Did they do it through whistleblowers within Google? I doubt if this material was handed over on request. So somehow the Wall Street Journal, their 4 writers, used their investigative bag of tricks to get these documents, and they viewed tangibly, materially, documents in their hand with names of organizations on them. And I'm continuing. In one partial blacklist reviewed by the Wall Street Journal, some conservative and right-wing websites, including, I want you to get this, everybody listening, Tom Trento at 16 after 11 on the 19th, it's not the 11th, it's the 19th of the 11th month, on the 19th of the 11th month. It was 11th hour and 11th day, all that. But I want you to listen carefully. Some conservative and right-wing websites, including the Gateway Pundit. Now, any conservative worth their salt would know that the Gateway Pundit is a very prestigious conservative website blog that has a lot of distinguished conservative writers voicing their opinion. And it's someplace, if you want to get a good read on what's going on, you go to the Gateway Pundit. It's verified, documented, very sound material. And I'm continuing. Some conservative and right-wing websites, including the Gateway Pundit and the United West, that's us, and the United West, were included on a list of hundreds of websites that wouldn't appear in news or featured products. I got to emphasize that. Through their investigation at the Wall Street Journal, they found that hundreds of websites, and they identified, God knows why they identified the Gateway Pundit and the United West. I have no idea. They identified the United West as one of the organizations, conservative organization, on a list of hundreds of websites. Well, what happens to these websites?
Hundreds.
They will not appear in news or featured products. So if you want to Google and say the United West and recent activity in Israel, the United West and the State Department's announcement in Israel, you ain't getting it, and we have stuff like that on our website. You ain't getting the United West because they blacklisted us from being involved in any news searches, any searches that were seeking out news about something, ampersand the United West, and any products, if we feature any products. Now, we don't have a whole lot of products to feature. Our product is our work, our body of work. And on our website, we have writings from various people. We have all of our videos, all of our Sharia Crime Stopper information. We have a lot of stuff. Well, if you Google the United West and something and you're searching for news, you ain't getting it because we are on a blacklist.
Well, let me give you a prime example of that, Tom.
Yeah.
What that means is even if it links anyway to the unitedwest.org in our URL, in our metadata, right on top of it, somehow there's a story that says unitedwest.org in it, right? It's immediately blacklisted. And it's removed by YouTube also, by the way. We know that because we did a story with Breitbart. Breitbart put out a story that said the Boca Raton Mosque to extreme. Massive amounts of just a factual, straight-up report that we did with a list of how the Boca Raton Mosque was very radical.
That doesn't, I think Google owns YouTube, right?
Yeah,
of course.
They do. And so what happened was that not only they left the Breitbart article up there, but the link to the video that the Breitbart article was talking about was removed and banned from YouTube. Said content unacceptable.
Well, we knew a couple of years ago all of our YouTube videos, and we have over 1,000 hours. Now it's probably 1,500 hours of produced video on YouTube. We used to monetize that. When you put up a video, you click a little box, says, do you want ads to appear? You'll get paid a penny or whatever the numbers are. And, we run on donations, and we said, yeah, sure, whatever. And we bring in $1,000 a month, something like that. I mean, not a lot of money, but a lot for us. And all of a sudden, anything we put up immediately came back not fit for monetization.
Well, here's the irony of that. We put up a 30-second blank video with no audio, and it got banned for inappropriate content.
Yeah, we did a series of tests, and I think Mark had the camera pointing at the U.S. flag or something, and we just put that up, and it came back up not fit for monetization. So we knew something was up. We had no idea that we were identified as an organization that is dangerous. Our information is dangerous to the viewing and listening public, and they make these magical algorithms that whenever you see in any form the United West, boom, that pulls it out. Google has repeatedly said, and I'm reading now, Google has said repeatedly, it doesn't make decisions based on politics. Yeah, sure. And current and former employees told the Journal they haven't seen evidence of political bias. Yeah, sure. And yet they said Google's shifting policies on interference and its lack of transparency about them inevitably force employees to become arbiters of what is acceptable, a dilemma that opens the door to charges of bias or favoritism. Google's Miss Levine, one of their executives, declined to comment to the Wall Street Journal investigative report. So, giving Google the best read, they have pure intentions. They have just America and the First Amendment. They don't have any political bias. If you believe that, But let's give them that for this. We'll stipulate for the sake of the conversation. They're indicating that the problem doesn't lie with the philosophical direction. Now, who are the employees at Google? Every employee there is like 20 years old. They're all very, very intelligent people. They've been to Ivy League schools. They're in Silicon Valley. if they're 25 or 26, they're getting ready for retirement. They got their stock, all of that. And where is the average 20-year-old to 30-year-old right now politically? If you look at the data out there, obviously they're on the left side. They're Bernie supporters. They're Elizabeth Warren supporters. They believe in socialism. You don't think if they had any say in what websites get blacklisted that they would talk to their friends who are making a decision? Well, we expose Islam quite a bit. There's a lot of Muslims working in the tech world. Is it inconceivable to believe that somebody looks at our website who has a slant toward Islam and says, I'm not putting those guys out. They expose Islam and all of that. Why would I do that? Well, blacklist it.
Exactly.
Or we do a lot of work on the Marxism issue. You think the socialists wouldn't say, well, they got Trevor Loudon on their website, John Guandolo, Claire Lopez. Nope, blacklisted. You guys are out.
Banned.
That's what happens. Now, let's play this Fox and Friends clip, and then I'm going to tell you what I think we're going to do, and then we'll move on from there. So listen carefully. This morning on Fox and News, my phone's been burning up, people saying, your story's on Fox and Friends, and we're ready right now.
Google under fire again. The Wall Street Journal investigation finds the tech giant interferes with search results and keeps blacklists to prevent certain sites from popping up. The article says, quote, some of the websites Google appears to have targeted in Google News were conservative sites and blogs. In one partial blacklist reviewed by the Journal, some conservative and right-wing websites, including the Gateway Pundit and the United West, were included on a list of hundreds of websites that would not appear in the news or featured products. Is that fair? David Limbaugh is author of the new book, Guilty by Reason of Insanity, and joins us out. David, another word is banned is the word abortion, too.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for having me on. I talk about this extensively in my book. The social media companies have enormous power to regulate speech. And it's not even a First Amendment question because there's no government action. So they can manipulate search results, and we found that they do by labeling certain things as controversial. Slate's April Glazer made a complaint that too many negative abortion videos were surfacing when the term abortion came up, and shortly after she complained, there was evidence that it was decreased. And one leaked Google employee note said that this was a smoking gun that they manipulate their search results.
It's just you wonder, you want the free market to be the free market. That's a free company, but you have to ask people to have integrity. How do you legislate integrity?
There are ways. Ted Cruz and others have talked about an antitrust action against these companies for abuse. But there's also Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. See, these companies are immune from liability for their content posted by users because they're open to all users like phone companies. But if they selectively ban content, then they become content providers and they can be treated as regular companies, and their liability can be taken, their immunity can be taken away, and that's been threatened.
Well, we here now know that we are on a blacklist, and if you have any ideas out there as to what we should do about this, contact us at TUW, 3 initials. They're an acronym for The United West, TUW at The United West. You have to put in The United West, one whole word, .org. So if you got any ideas what we should do, people are saying, sue them. I've been involved in a lot of lawsuits, and litigation is extremely expensive, extremely time-consuming. Possibly there's a basis for this. We're going to make some phone calls to the folks that represent us to find out if there's anything there. But more so, there may be other ways in the marketplace, in the battlefield of ideas to deal with this. But one way, if you are upset with this and you want organizations like ours, indeed the United West, to fight back, again, we're a C3. We live on tax donations. You can go to our website, theunitedwest.org, make a donation. Much appreciated, greatly needed. Okay, we're blacklisted, so you may not want to listen anymore, but I would advise you. The material we have coming up next is some of the substantive information we put out. We believe here, and we've done hundreds of these shows on WWNN over the years, And we have our motif, our style is what we call edutainment.
Yes.
We'd like to educate and we like to entertain a little bit. And we've done a lot of that. But a lot of our work is just hardcore research, hardcore analysis, hardcore evaluation and expose on critical information to you. The next segment is very important insight into a major development by the United States as it relates to Israel, which relates to the Middle East, which is the tinderbox for the rest of the world. But at 11:27 in the afternoon on the East Coast, I know some friends are listening on the West Coast. Hello, friends on the West Coast. It's morning time. You're getting up, you're stretching, you're yawning, you're having your first cup or second cup of coffee, and you're saying to yourself, why do I live in California? Bunch of crazy people here, but I still live here. But you know what? It used to be a beautiful state. I worked there for a couple of years, and that was in the turn of the century here in 2000. And since then, it has gone downhill so badly. It's sad. But it's still 8:28 in the morning in California. And in Israel, and we got two people coming on the show from Israel, three actually, one in the studio, and two in Israel on at this moment at 6:28 in the evening in Israel. So we got a 10-hour span of people listening that we know of in this country. Tom Trento, your host, The United West. In the control room is J. Mark Campbell. Say hello, Mark. Say hello, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Mark needs help back there.
I need an extra arm.
If you have skills in television production and you can withstand our vetting process, which uses electric cords and a battery, but that's beside the point.
And hot lights.
And Clegg lights. And you have a trust fund that can help us with new equipment. We want to know who you are. Okay, come on down.
Can I say one quick point about the Google thing,
Yeah,
Tom? We're really making them mad. I mean, to come after us, the United West, with their multi-billions of dollars, we're really making them mad. So we're doing something right, Tom.
Yeah. When, you hear it a lot, but it's true. When you're taking on fire, you're over the target. If an airplane is coming to drop bombs and it's receiving AAA, you're over the target. Exactly. That's where we thrive. We love absolutely. Breaking news. I love live radio. Jeffrey Epstein prison guards charged with falsifying records.
That's a shocker.
Records. Oh, you mean like saying he hung himself? That record?
Well, no, the gun deck. They were there. So when they're just gun decking means you falsify a log. That's a Navy term.
Oh, and which you never did when you were in the Navy.
You say, hey, I was there, and you sign a log. And they lied. They were asleep. I doubt if they were even asleep. I think they were told to go. Hey,
they were told to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They were told.
Yep.
All right, here we go. This half hour, we have our focus is on a press conference that was done in the State Department yesterday by Secretary of State Michael Pompeo, and it was a shock to many people. I have with me right now at the microphone Dr. Roni Wexler, our dear friend, our brother in arms, and the owner of the tour group. It's really tour company makes it sound like it's just another thing of the organization that takes people to Israel to put them on the front lines and return back seasoned activists to stand with the United States and Israel. Ron, when you heard Mike Pompeo yesterday, what was your thoughts? You contacted me immediately.
Well, the next second I contacted you. That's right. This is history in the makes. This is something that we all wanted to hear, and it came true. It's another promise, I guess. You can say that Trump fulfilled. Most people that listen to you probably now don't know what the West Bank is. West Bank is a part of Israel. It's called Judea and Samaria. It never was a country called Palestine. Palestine was a country that was given to Israel 2,000 years ago by the Roman Empire. And then when the Turks controlled the area, they continued to call it Palestine. I have a passport of my father that says Palestine on it as well. So what was Palestine? Palestine was always Israel. And during the independence war in Israel,
What year was that?
in 1948, Israel fought all the Arab countries. The Arab country that controlled the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria, was Jordan, the Kingdom of Jordan. At the day that the ceasefire was declared, the declaration of ceasefire was between Israel and Jordan. And about 20 years later, or 18 years later, during the 6 Days War, Israel took over the West Bank, liberated the West Bank. So it holds the West Bank. It's not occupying the West Bank. It's a part of Israel, always was. Now, here's the beauty. When the peace talks started between Israel and Jordan, Jordan was offered to take back, remember the word back. It had the West Bank before. It was offered to be taken back or given back to Jordan. Jordan didn't want anything to do with it. So the right owner, quote unquote, if anything at all, is Jordan, is not the Palestinian people. Well, lo and behold, Jordan don't want to hear from it. So it is a part of Israel. Now, Israel gave an opportunity to the Palestinians living in Judea and Samaria, an ability to work, to continue life and do everything they want. All of a sudden, they wanted a country of their own. Never was a country for the Palestinians. Nobody ever heard of it before, and now it became a source of contention. So for the United States to come now and say that Israel has the legal ability to build in the West Bank, we always knew it in Israel. There was no news there. The news is that America is now taking the right side, the same side that President Reagan took, and taken away by Kelly, by President Obama in the last few days of his administration, just to spite. What did they need to go into it in the last few days? So that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for spite. Okay, let's see. He's getting no answer. We're having one of our guests from Israel calling in, getting no answer. Are you guys manning the lines? You should be getting a call from Israel.
He's on the line.
He's on the line. Okay, he finally got on the line. All right, with me now from Israel is Barry Shaw, S-H-A-W, Barry, B-A-R-R-Y, good friend of ours. He heads up the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. Barry, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just great, Tom. Nice to talk to you again.
Dr. Roni Wexler was just on giving an overview of what took place. And for our listening audience at 11:35 in the morning, on the east coast of the United States, 6:35 in the evening, where Barry is on the coast, the beautiful coast of Israel. Barry, were you taken by? Now, Barry has done extensive work and writing on the issues of BDS, of anti-Semitism, of the West Bank, Judea, Samaria. He is a subject matter expert. Were you surprised, shocked, amazed? What's the adjective when you heard Pompeo's speech yesterday?
We were surprised and delighted because, to begin with, his voice came through like a voice of clarity that we hadn't heard for quite some time. Give you one example. Just about 5 days ago, the United Nations were approving the passing of 14 anti-Israel resolutions that will be going to the United Nations General Assembly for approval beginning of December. One of those, of course, will designate the Temple Mount, known to everybody around the world, particularly Christians and Jews, as the place of the original biblical temple. But they have passing a resolution not calling it the Temple Mount, the Har el Sharam. In other words, that it belongs exclusively to Islam, not to Christianity and not to Judaism.
Wow.
These are the sort of resolutions that the United Nations are passing today. The United Nations is the chamber for lies and anti-Semitism. And what we needed was the clear voice of Mr. Pompeo, in which he said the simple truth and clarifies a competing and conflicting narrative. That basically, in a nutshell, that it's okay for Muslims to live anywhere in the West Bank, as they call it, but that up till now it is illegal for Jews to live in Judea and Samaria.
By the way, Barry, this is Tom. I need you to say that again. For the listening audience, Tom Trento, your host on WNN 1470, 95.3 on the FM side. I have with me subject matter expert, an Israeli, Barry Shaw. When we go to Israel on our investigative missions, Barry is one of the folks who briefs us. He lives there. He writes extensively. And he just made an outrageous statement. It sounds logically outrageous, but I guess it's politically accurate. Can you say that again? Jews are not what now?
Yeah. All right, I'll come to. Let me just give you a short historical perspective so your listeners can understand what we're talking about. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that he was reversing a long-standing and offensive, I dare say, State Department legal opinion that Israelis living in Judea and Samaria were there illegally. So, look, a brief historical review of U.S. policy on the legality of what's called settlements has, according to Mike Pompeo himself, been inconsistent over decades. Let me just run this by you. 1978, the Carter administration decided that the...
Wait, hey, Barry, hang on one second. I'm going to play a part of Pompeo, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, his talk yesterday, which shocked all of us. Mark, let's play the first segment. And what Barry Shaw has been talking about, the clear, and he's a very subtle guy. You know, he's worked with friends of mine for many years. He's not bombastic. He's not loud. You know, he's not like our president. Hey, you know, he's just a policy guy, a good Christian man. And he just gets up there and reads his prepared words. But you can see, and this is what he believes. I mean, he believes this stuff as an individual. But listen carefully to what he says. It's reflecting what Roni Wexler has mentioned at the start of this segment, what Barry Shaw is mentioning. And then, Barry, I want you to come in after this first segment and comment on what he says. So, Mark, let's run that first segment.
Turning now to Israel. The Trump administration is reversing the Obama administration's approach towards Israeli settlements. U.S. public statements on settlement activities in the West Bank have been inconsistent over decades. In 1978, the Carter administration categorically concluded that Israel's establishment of civilian settlements was inconsistent with international law. However, in 1981, President Reagan disagreed with that conclusion and stated that he didn't believe that the settlements were inherently illegal. Subsequent administrations recognized that unrestrained settlement activity could be an obstacle to peace, but they wisely and prudently recognized that dwelling on legal positions didn't advance peace. However, in December 2016, at the very end of the previous administration, Secretary Kerry changed decades of this careful, bipartisan approach by publicly reaffirming the supposed illegality of settlements. After carefully
Barry, December of 2016, they're done. The Obama administration is done. It's time for an inauguration a month from now, and Kerry comes out. And where were you when Kerry made these statements, and what was your thinking?
I was in shock. Look, what Obama did in December 2016 was the final act of betrayal by Obama when he stabbed Israel in the back by enabling the United Nations Security Council to pass UN Resolution 2334, which declared that settlement activity constituted, and I quote, a vagrant violation of international law and had no legal validity. Tom, if you give me a bit of time, I'll give you that legal validity. But
well, hang on one second. We may have to do another show on this to get everything out, but your friend Roni Wexler is here. Ron, say hello to Barry.
Hello, Ron.
Hi, how are you? Shalom.
Very good. Shalom to you, Ron. How are you?
All right. Now, Ron, what was your thinking? You were born in Israel, in Tel Aviv. You've lived through all this stuff. What was your thinking in December of 2007? Now, I want to stress this because our show is broadcast in South Florida. It's the, I think, second or third largest Jewish community in the United States behind New York and Los Angeles. And we have, sadly, 75, 80% of Jewish people vote for the Democrat Party, vote against their own self-interests as it relates to Israel. And many of them are listening to the show now. And I want you two guys, two Israelis, to make the point of what the hell are you people doing? Ron, what was your thought when Kerry, on the way out, says, sorry, you're occupiers, Israel?
Well, as Barry said it very eloquently, it was a betrayal, the final act of betrayal that Israel received in the last few days of the administration. This was wrong. Earlier in the show, I explained what the West Bank means, what it means to Israel in relation to Jordan, and where the Palestinians' place in all this, in actuality, takes place. And it was just throwing Israel under the bus again.
Tom, I agree with Ron said, and I'll go further than that. I'm sure Ron's going to agree with me. At that time, the thought that Jews desiring to live in their ancient land of Judea had no legal right to be there was morally, legally, historically immoral and abhorrent. It is also deeply and anti-Semitically offensive.
Okay. All right. Let's play the next clip, the next Pompeo clip. And I have another Israeli coming in. We're going to have an Israeli party here today. I want to get his comments. And then, Barry, I think what we'll do, I want to have a discussion between the four of us. I think what we'll do, because this is just the beginning. You know, I'm monitoring the Arab press, and they're going crazy. I'm sure there's all kinds of nonsense going on with the PA and the Hamas over there. So we will book another show to go through this in detail with your expertise on every point. But let's play the second clip of Pompeo's talk. And then Joe at the studio, you're going to be getting another caller from Israel. I'll bring him on after that.
After carefully studying all sides of the legal debate, this administration agrees with President Reagan. The establishment of Israeli civilian settlements in the West Bank is not, per se, inconsistent with international law. I want to emphasize several important considerations. First, look, we recognize that as Israeli courts have, that legal conclusions relating to individual settlements must depend on an assessment of specific facts and circumstances on the ground. Therefore, the United States government is expressing no view on the legal status of any individual settlement. The Israeli legal system affords an opportunity to challenge settlement activity and assess humanitarian considerations connected to it. Israeli courts have confirmed the legality of certain settlement activities and has concluded that others cannot be legally sustained. Second, we're not addressing or prejudging the ultimate status of the West Bank. This is for the Israelis and the Palestinians to negotiate. International law does not compel a particular outcome nor create any legal obstacle to a negotiated resolution. Third, the conclusion that we will no longer recognize Israeli settlements as per se inconsistent with international law is based on the unique facts, history, and circumstances presented by the establishment of civilian settlements in the West Bank. Our decision today does not prejudice or decide legal conclusions regarding situations in any other parts of the world. And finally, calling the establishment of civilian settlements inconsistent with international law hasn't worked. It hasn't advanced the cause of peace. The hard truth is, there will never be a judicial resolution to the conflict, and arguments about who is right and wrong as a matter of international law will not bring peace. This is a complex political problem that can only be solved by negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians. The United States remains deeply committed to helping facilitate peace, and I will do everything I can to help this cause. The United States encourages the Israelis and the Palestinians to resolve the status of Israeli settlements in the West Bank in any final status negotiations. And further, we encourage both sides to find a solution that protects the security and welfare of Palestinians and Israelis alike.
All right, so what we have now, everyone listening, Tom Trento, your host, 11:46 in the morning on the east coast of Florida, WNN 1470. And do I have Damon? Is Damon with us right now? Yeah, you're there, Damon?
I am here.
All right, Damon Rosen, well known to the United West listening and viewing audience. We have two of your buddies on the line. We have Barry Shaw, who's living not too far from you, and Roni Wexler is here in the studio. Are you living now in Judea or Samaria, any of the occupied areas, Damon?
I am actually in Judea, where I live is considered an illegal settlement on UN standards. I'm across the 1949 Green Line, and this is where I live.
What did you? Where were you when you heard Pompeo's pronouncement, Damon? Where were you when you heard Pompeo saying, "You know what? The United States is reversing its 40 years of policies here, and we're going to disagree with, established international law, and we're going to agree that Israel owns Judea and Samaria." Where were you yesterday?
I was sitting on the same couch I'm sitting on as I'm talking to you right now, and a big smile popped across my face. And the first thing that came to mind is, of course, Jews are from Judea, Arabs are from Arabia. It's pretty freaking simple. We are called Jews because our ancestral homeland is Judea, the same place that the anti-Semitic United Nations is saying that we have no legal right to live. So I would like to thank President Donald J. Trump, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, for actually just using common sense and saying, of course, Jews belong in Judea.
Hey, Barry, thank you for cutting through the BS, Damon, as you so well do. And Jews are from Judea, Arabs are from Arabia. Okay, that kind of makes sense.
Right,
Barry,
Tom.
What do you foresee as the ramifications? What are the Arabs who don't like this decision? What are they going to do? What's the UN going to do? What's the EU going to do?
Well, I prefer to actually confirm what Mike Pompeo was saying about the historic connection. If I go back even to the League of Nations in 1922, you know what he talked about then? And the League of Nations was the United Nations before the United Nations was born.
Right.
And they talk, using their words, of the historic connection of the Jewish people with Palestine and the grounds for reconstituting their national home in that country. And then Article 6 of the League of Nations document says, believe it or not, called for close settlement by Jews on the land, including state lands and wasteland, not required for public purpose. And you know what happened when the League of Nations folded? It became the United Nations. And the United Nations have a commitment in Article 80 to retain all the treaties and obligations undertaken by the League of Nations. And those are valid up till today. So what Mike Pompeo was doing was simply reiterating the law, the legitimacy as decreed by the League of Nations going back 1922. I'm not even going back to the Bible. We can do that as well. But these laws and these obligations are still valid today, no matter what the United Nations decide. I want to tell you guys, just let me finish with this.
Yeah. No, this is great. Go ahead.
Hang on, Tom. Let me give you this. It's very important for your listeners to hear. The United Nations, several years ago, passed a resolution saying Zionism is racism. And it took us 17 years to get that off the law books. So because the United Nations passes these anti-Semitic laws, doesn't mean we have to stop standing up for truth and justice for the Jewish people.
Amen.
Yeah, amen is right. Preach it, brother. Hey, Ron, we go to Israel on our excursions every year. We're going May 18 through 29 of next year, a election year special national security mission. If you're interested, folks out there listening, contact our organization, The United West. And you can go to the website, get all the information about it, or you can go to our website, Jerusalem Day 2020, two numbers, JerusalemDay2020.com. You'll see our mission, all the information. Ron, you take us into Judea, into Samaria, into everywhere, all over. And wherever we go on with Israelis, Donald Trump signs, we love Donald Trump, all of this. He literally could become the prime minister if he went there now with the mess that's going on. But Ron, if he went over to the PA side,
prime minister, he could be the king of Israel.
He could be the king, yeah. If Trump went over to the PA side and tried to run for Abu Mazen's position as the head of the PA, how would he do with the Arabs, you think, right now?
I guess the best solution for him there is being stoned and crucified. But the thing is, you mentioned the trip to Israel, and I think the better way, or the only way, basically, to understand what we are talking here today is to experience on the ground what Judea and Samaria is in relation to Israel, and again, go a little bit into history and see what was the Armistice lines, the ceasefire lines between Jordan, the country of Jordan, and Israel. And this is where the whole problem begins, and it must end. Ceasefire is not peace, and when the area was offered back to the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, they simply didn't want to have it. So it's in Israel. One way or another, Damon is living in Israel today, as he lived in Israel yesterday and the day before yesterday.
Your thoughts, Damon, on where you live?
Tom, can I add something to what Ron said? And
go ahead, Barry. Hey, let me tell the audience what we have going on here. You got Tom Trento. What? You got Tom Trento hosting the Trento show on November 19th at 11:54 in the morning. Got about 5 minutes left on our show, as Mark is telling me here. And, this is a kind of roundtable discussion. We can go on for an hour. But I have Barry Shaw, who heads up the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, subject matter expert on all things Israel. Dr. Roni, and he's an Israeli, Barry Shaw. He lives there. He's there right now. Roni Wexler is in studio with me. He lives in the U.S. and Israel. He's an Israeli, born there. And Damon Rosen, who used to be an American, was born. I think was Damon born, or was he just kind of in a laboratory? He came out of a laboratory. But in any event, he's living in Israel right now. What's that?
I said I was born in Brooklyn, New York, same as Palestinian refugee on UNRWA numbers, Linda Sarsour.
Yeah, that's right. You're a Brooklynian, and now you're an occupying Jew in the occupied land. Look, these guys aren't going to go, oh, okay, the United States now made an interesting decision. Damon, what do you think Israel would look like right now if Hillary Clinton was president, or if Bernie Sanders or Biden or one of those become president? How is that going to impact Israel? You tell me your view, and I want to hear the other two guys' views on the importance of a president who is pro-Israel.
Well, first of all, let's take it back to when Donald J. Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. I believe that any of these Democrats, Hillary or the communists, would have declared Jerusalem the capital of a Palestinian state, a Muslim state, not the Jewish Israeli state, to give you an idea of how diametrically opposed the opinions of the parties are, and particularly Donald Trump, because the Republicans in office for years before never bothered to do any of this. So Donald J. Trump is by far, the most pro-Israel president in American history, bar none.
Roni, your thoughts?
Well, I think both Damon and certainly Barry, living in Israel for such a long time, would understand what some of the listeners will probably not. Israel is an island. We always felt alone, and there's nobody watching our back. And to have President Trump now doing what he's doing, vis-a-vis Jerusalem, supporting Israel, Golan Heights, and now this is a gift Israel was yearning for a long, long time, and now it's reality.
I want to, Barry, I'm going to come to you in a minute. I want to, and look, I mean, we do a lot of work, all things Israel. We go there, and it's so important to the U.S.'s national security. That's why we're doing this, apart from our love for Israel and the Jewish people. And I'm a Christian. I'm an evangelical Christian. But I want to do another show that addresses how decisions like this, clear decisions, actually can bring about peace more expeditiously than this nonsensical, 2 states, 5 states, 1 state, 7 emirates, all these different things. Barry, your views on the importance of President Trump, and I'm sure you realize there's an inquiry, a kangaroo court, nonsensical, going nowhere, piece of crap event going on Capitol Hill as history's being made in Israel with efforts by the Democrats to get rid of this president that is remaking the doctrines and the peace of the Middle East. Your thoughts, Barry?
You're quite
right.
Got 1
minute.
This is a critical issue. What American voters can see right now is the clarity of the Trump administration against the words and the potential action of two of the leading Democratic presidential candidates. Both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have stated they want to give U.S. military aid to Israel to stop that and instead give that money to Gaza for what they call humanitarian aid. We know what humanitarian aid to Gaza is
on the ground.
Because this money...
All right, we got to get going. Barry, thank you very, very much. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. We led off the show with why Google has blacklisted us. This show today is one of the definitive reasons why we're being blacklisted by Google, because we bring you the truth. Barry, Damon, Roni, thank you very much. We'll bring all of you back in the very near future. Tom Trento, signing off.